Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Brother Mujtaba. I am making this recording as a plea on what is happening in today's time. It is now. It is the time of now that every human being, and I am sincere about this, this is very crucial. It does not matter if you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim, if you're an Arab or a non-Arab, if you're white or if you're black or any race, religion, anything. It is now the time as humanitarian cause needs every voice to stand and make a stand. What do you decide? Because that's the reality that we're facing at this moment. And being silent, being neutral should no longer be an option. So this is why I'm making this recording because I have been quiet about many things in my life. I don't talk about religion. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about a lot of the topics on for two things. Number one, this is very important. I don't talk about specifically religion because I do fear Allah Azza wa Jal. I do fear my Creator. I do fear God because it's important to understand when you're talking about God, you become that ambassador. You become someone who's representing religion. And it is so important that you have knowledge. If you do not have knowledge, how are you able to speak the truth about God? Where's your credibility lie when you're talking about God? And so for that main reason, I fear that. Because if I say something incorrectly, that is putting injustice to my own soul. Because I am, and I take this seriously when I say this, I am responsible for my words, my actions. So this one reason why I do not talk about religion specifically. And then when it comes to other topics, big topics, like what's happening now and politics and everything, I'm not educated enough. Now, it's not to say that I cannot get educated. I do have the mental capacity, I have the resources, I have the ability, but there is still that respect that you have to take on, right? To actually know your material soundly that you can actually talk about it. You look at the world today, anyone with a camera, actually anyone with a phone nowadays with these smartphones, you could just turn on a camera and just talk about, say whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. And they can be factual, they could be completely whatever, and people just eat it up, right? And especially in Western laws, right? If you don't want to get sued, you will put a disclaimer saying entertainment purposes only, meaning that you cannot call yourself newsworthy, factual worthy by saying entertainment purposes. Why? Because you're trying to hide behind a law where freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of protest, freedom of something, right? So that way you cannot be accountable. But what you're really doing is you want to feel legitimized that what you're saying is true, even though if there is no factual basis. So that's what a lot of people do. And that's dangerous. So that's the two reasons why I don't talk about a lot of topics. Is it is dangerous to allow a discourse where I do not need to be part of. So that's why I keep silent. But when it comes to this specific issue that is happening right now in 2023, in the end of October, this is October 31st of this recording, over 3 weeks of devastating, relentless killing of innocent lives. And let's call it what it is, a genocide that is happening. I have to speak up. I have to give a voice. Because as a Muslim, and it should not be a surprise to many people by now, I am a Muslim. And as a Muslim, it is important that I keep my voice heard, if it's being heard. I don't have any popularity. I am not someone that has followers. I'm making a voice that could be heard. But most importantly, I want to signify that I am taking a stance publicly. That is more important to me right now, that I'm making a public stand. What is happening in Philistine has to be heard and has to be publicly recorded that I take a stand. And I really encourage anyone and everyone that has the ability and accessibility, and most people today has a smartphone that they can record themselves and publicly publish where they stand. And you think that this is not going to do anything? Oh, believe me, this is going to make a huge impact. Let your voice be heard and known today. Why this is so important? Let me explain. There's a hadith, right, in Islam that if an atrocity is happening, you should stop it with your hands. And let's be clear and let's be honest. Majority of the people in the world cannot physically stop something at this moment. And let's be honest. We have been so accustomed and comforted by our own worlds that we live in, right? We have been eating donuts and drinking coffees and living a custom life, right? We're not trained warriors. We don't have the ability to actually stop something with our own physical hands. And that's okay. I'm telling you right now, that is okay. You were not trained to be a fighter, a resistant fighter. That is okay. But the next step that the hadith is, if you cannot stop it with your hands, then at least speak about it. So this is that stage that I am trying to encourage every single human being to do. Let your voice be heard. Let your voice be known. You are being recorded in history. I'm talking to as a general. If you're not a Muslim, because as a Muslim, your actions is being recorded by your angels and it's going to be presented to you by God. But if you're not a Muslim and you don't believe in any religion, you're still being recorded in history. Right? You will be recorded in history. Where did you lie on these issues themselves? So take that seriously. And that is important. So in finishing up with that hadith, if you cannot stop it with your hand and you cannot stop it with your voice, then have it in your heart, right? You denounce what's happening, you don't speak about it, but you have it in your heart. And what does that mean? In my own humble opinion, that is like a boycott, right? You decide not to go to a specific restaurant to dine out or buy or purchase an item or give your money to a specific services. That's a boycott. You're quietly showing that you're not interested in certain products, goods, and services, right? That's what you're advocating for. But that is the last resort. Let's not get to that point. And even if we do get to that point, let's be clear. Look at the world that we live on, right? Monopolization is just happening. So there will be a point with all of this so-called realm of ideologies that we have a competition of goods and services. Who knows? One day it'll be monopolized by one or few entities. So will boycott make a huge difference in that future? So let's not get to that point. Let's keep it where we are. Keep it where we need to be, which we can still advocate, use our voices. We're in a generation with the highest ability of technology that we can use. Use it. And this is very important. This is why I'm making this. Now, it's not just alone with what's happening with Philistine, but this cause has exacerbated to a point that I myself can no longer stay silent. There are still atrocities all over the world. Atrocities that's happening for the Uyghur Muslims in China, the issues in Kashmir, the issues of the Rohingya Muslims. There are all sorts of atrocities that I stand by them as well. But at this moment, I want to make this issue a huge priority because it is now in the sphere of everyone. It's like you have to be literally living under a rock and not know what's happening in Philistine. So this is why we have to bring this topic. And this is why I am bringing this topic. Because far too many times the Philistine cause comes up and subsidizes. Excuse me, the Philistine cause goes up and then subsides. It just becomes quiet. This can no longer, this trend can no longer continue. We must have our voices keep going and going and going until the end of time or your life. Why? Because again, now speaking to the Muslims or just religious people, because we know in the Philistine area, the holiest sites are there, right? As a Muslim, we have Masjid al-Aqsa. It is co-equally as Makkah to Kaaba and Medina, Masjid al-Nabi. Masjid al-Aqsa for a Muslim should be the same relevance, importance. I know many Muslims who would willing to go out and fight to protect the Kaaba, to protect Medina, Masjid al-Nabawi. But when it comes to Masjid al-Aqsa, there isn't much relevance to them. And that's scary. That is very dangerous. It's important that we are reminded Masjid al-Aqsa is same and important as Masjid al-Nabawi and Makkah's Kaaba. Why a lot of people don't take that as reverence? Because think about it. Many Muslims go out to Umrah or Hajj and they got the opportunity to witness and see with their own eyes Makkah and Medina in their lifetimes. And there are many Muslims who got the opportunity to see Masjid al-Nabawi and the Haram Sharif of Makkah, the Kaaba, but never got to see Masjid al-Aqsa in their lifetimes. They dreamt about it, they yearned for it, but of course, with the illegal occupation that happens, they never felt safe to go there. So when it comes to generation after generation, there's no relevance for people. All they think is the greater holy site is Makkah and Medina, and completely forgetting about Masjid al-Aqsa. So this cannot be ending now. This has to be a lifetime agenda, issue that must be continuous, consistent, not like it was before. You should make it in your hearts that you want to go one day to Makkah, to see the Kaaba, Medina, to see the Masjid al-Nabawi, and then to go and to see in a Damascus, go to Palestine to go and see the wonders of Masjid al-Aqsa. If you keep your voices up, maybe, inshallah, God willingly, this can be a reality in our lifetimes. And this must be our forefront. So what can I do? What can we do? I just mentioned I'm not someone prepared to fight. I get it. I get it. So this is why I'm saying get your voices heard. And I propose 4 things that anyone that really takes a stand with Philistine should start doing today. Number 1, very important. Know your history. Now, for a lot of people, they do not like history. Well, this is it. You have to know your history. You have to. Because you're in war, you need to know your enemy. You need to know the context of what you're getting yourself into. Prepare your mind that you are preparing yourself into war. This is really what it is. This is war. Right? A strategy needs to be formulated. And I'm giving you what the strategy is. Number 1, know your history. If you didn't know it before, now know it. Remember, this did not just happen in October 7. Know what happened in the 60s, know what happened in the 40s, know about the Nakba. You ask any common person, even Muslims, about the 1917, the Balfour Declaration, they don't know what that is. Ah, there we go. 1917. Whoa, you're telling me this started happening back in 1917? I'm telling you this happened way before 1917. This is why it's so important to know your history. Know that history so well because you're in war. Know your enemy. Because if you don't take a stand and if you don't fight for these people's rights and if you do not know what is really happening and understand the purpose, then you're going to fall. Because most likely, either your enemy knows the history well enough and they're hiding it. That's why they're a propaganda machine. They're going to only say and use tactics that will work for their benefit. But if you know your history and you're ready to fight words with words, because that's what it is. You're fighting words with words now. Right? And words is a very powerful weapon as well. But in order to fight words, you need to be educated. You need to use your intelligence. And you need to know your history. So if they know the history, of course they're going to hide that part. They're going to use relevant words and information that suits them. And they're banking on that most people don't know their history and then they can manipulate people to feel for their cause. But now it's no longer about being lazy. You have to take that opportunity and learn your history. So that's number one. Very important. Know your history. Like I just dropped some information on you, right? Learn the 1917 Balfour Declaration, what that was. Read it carefully. Read that declaration carefully and learn how it took to get to that point to make that. There were multiple drafts and specific words that were used to create that final draft. Because again, they understood words and the powerful messaging of those words. And this is why you need to take back your words and take back this war and be able to know how to use the same tactics that they do. Be very, very observant on words and how it's used and what meanings words can have. So that's one. Know your history. Number two, like I said, this is war of words. This really is war of words. Right? If you want to fight, they fight dirty. And sometimes they are trained tactically to use specific key words and phrases, right? To get into people's heads. A type of psychological warfare. They know how to use propaganda and they're trained professionals. What they're not prepared is to see the average person who actually knows their history and is able to go at them. They're not ready for that. They got so used to dealing with the average Joe to a point where they don't know their history. It became an easy, propaganda for them. But when you start knowing your history and you're understanding the type of words and languages that they're using, and now you're stopping them at that point and attacking them with the same tactics that they use, they don't know what to do. They weren't prepared for that. They're not used to it. Back them in that corner. So let me explain something to you. Let me make this clear. They keep saying, as an example, and I'm sure almost everyone has heard this, Israel has the right to defend itself. You've heard that. I don't know if you have, I don't know any person that has not heard. Again, you must be living in Iraq if you have not heard that phrase. Israel has the right to defend itself. But think about this for instance. If they have the right to defend themselves, that must mean they are on land legally. Is that correct? But that is not on a legal standpoint. It was an illegal occupation. Again, you have to know your history. Because think about this. Before the formation of Israel, what geographic location did they place themselves? An already existing land called Palestine, or I preferably like to say Philistine. It was already recognized, established that this area is called Philistine. Now, if again going back to history, were the Philistine people, the Philistinians, the Palestinian people, were they ever involved in the creation of Israel? When the Balfour Declaration was drafted and written and established, was the Palestinian people involved? And if you look at a specific word, that's why words are so important to understand. It says that they have the right to go back to a homeland. It doesn't say create a state, a country, because they were very careful at that time on using words. So now you look at this and say to them, if there was never a legitimate standing, not recognized by many nations, of the illegal occupation of an already existing country called Palestine, what is it defending itself from? Please explain me that. It's just like if a country comes to another existing country and it's fighting another country, the country that it invaded, the invading country, the invaders, they're telling the country that they're oppressing and fighting and beating up, oh, I have the right to defend myself. But you're the aggressor. You were never welcome in the first place, let alone had any negotiations or talks or anything that gives you legitimate right to be there. You just happen to come, attack us, and you're claiming you have the right to defend yourself while your aggressions is attacking us. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense to anyone? So that's the words that they're using. Israel has the right to defend itself. But they're the aggressors. They're there illegally. But now, if you were educated enough to understand the history, this is a war of words, you can say the Palestinian people absolutely do have the right to defend themselves because it is and has always been their land, recognized, and then on top of that, under the Geneva Accords, again, why it's so important to know your enemy and know these information. Under the Geneva Accords, they have the right for resistance. Oh, look at that word right there, resistance. You hear that word a lot now, don't you, in the news? You're hearing a lot of words, right to defend itself, terrorism, resistance. Right? Learn to pick up these words. Learn to understand the history. Learn what's so important, why this is so crucial. No longer an excuse to be deaf, dumb, and blind. You have to really know. So if it says, according to the Geneva Accords, that a country has the right to resist any illegal occupation, which is exactly what is happening, And that's what's happening. That's what is happening. This is this is important. This is crucial. You know, there was a time when Nelson Mandela, when all that propaganda that was happening, when he was trying to fight this whole apartheid. And I'm going to get to that word apartheid in this scenario in a second, but to bring this point home, at that time, he was considered a terrorist, an evil man who was disrupting the status quo of the apartheid, the colonization of making people, they didn't have the rights. But now when history has seen the reality of what happened, and when they actually defined what was happening with apartheid, they defined what was happening, this whole colonialization, then history finally deemed him as a hero. So only history can really, really tell. This is all recorded. And this is why I go back and why you need to stand. You need to make a stand. So this is absolutely, crucially important that we do this. And we do this now and we don't give up. And I'm telling you the tools that what you need to do. Like I mentioned, number one, learn the history. Know your enemy. Be prepared. No laziness anymore. You have to research and know it. Number two, play that tactical game. They know how to play it really well. Use the words. Understand the words that they're using, the terminology. Back them in that corner because they're not ready for this. They have been so comfortable of having, it's like they had their own propaganda machine and they just have to press a button and there it is. But now their machine was never ready to actually take on true history, true knowledge, true people that actually are spitting out the truth. Now they're going to have to figure something out afterwards, right? But until then, push them. Because, like I said, in the Geneva Accords, they have the right to resist, and that's what's happening. I don't see any terroristic activities. I see the right to resist. What I do see an aggressor committing genocide. I do see an aggressor who is has developed apartheid. And now going back to this word, think about it. So let's now use this word, right? They want to claim that Israel this, Israel that. No, let me tell you this. There is no Israel. It's illegal occupation. That's what it was. Backed by another colonialist country, the United States. Another colonialist country like the Europe, right? I mean, think about it, right? So if you really want to use war of words, let's say it. It is real that genocide is happening. It is real that people are suffering from decades on decades, over 75 years. It is real that when it comes to true solutions, that the illegal occupation has always rejected it over and over and over. It is real that when it comes to saying that the people of Palestine are all terrorists and evil, they say that. They, the illegal occupation, says that. But it is caught many times on record by just even regular citizens. They have been propagandized, right? They themselves have been propagandized that the Arab world and the Philistine people, they're nothing. They're not even humans. So it justifies this whole genocide. That they are the superior race. That's what they say. You don't need to have me tell you this. Look it up yourself. All textbook definition of apartheid. So it is real that when you say that they are propagandized and they're evil, but you're not, while you're the one is being caught on cameras and recordings that promote genocide. There was a study that came out, and it's so funny. It's really funny. I have to bring this up. They brought a group of people, right? They brought a group of people in one room, and they asked a group of people where I don't have the exact information on hand, but I'm going to just say it out, and this is why it's so relevant. So they got a group of people, and they say to the group of people, "Do you believe that people are easily manipulated?" And everybody was able to raise their hands, right? They were saying that, you know what, yeah, or I believe it was more like, do you believe that everyone has been manipulated easily one time of their own, one time of their life, something happened and they were just easily manipulated. Everybody raised their hand, right? Everybody says that, yeah, I believe somebody, everyone has at least been manipulated once in their lifetime or something like that, right? Then this study goes on, and it's asked them then, do you believe that the people in this room, right, in this room, do you believe that they were one time or another been manipulated? Again, the hands are still up, right? And then the funny thing is when they got to the specificity of now themselves, they asked, do you believe that you have been manipulated, right? And at any time of your life. And almost every hand was down. Isn't that funny? Isn't that hilarious that when it came to thinking that everyone else, you're able to point fingers that anyone can be manipulated, but then when it comes to yourself, nah, I'm above all that. I'm too smart. That kind of arrogance. And this is what's literally, they themselves said, the other guys, the Arabs, these people, they're manipulated. So that's why we have to go kill them and their own children and their schools and all of these things because you know what? We got to stop that propaganda that they're being taught. But themselves, no, they're the innocent people, right? They're the chosen ones. And of course, think about it, generation after generation, when you have this kind of propaganda, you're going to have government like that. You see how dangerous it is when you have people in charge, when you have people that have the ability to press a button to wipe a whole planet off? Oh, that is so scary. That is so dangerous. That is the reality that we are in right now. That is the reality we are in right now. You have politicians who feed off on genocide to become these politicians. They make policies to wipe out other countries and have no remorse. Enough is enough. It really is. We need to stand up. This is why this issue should not die. I repeat, this issue should not die. If this really pushes through, right, we will see real change happening. We will see real course correction that it should be done happen. So I know I'm going on tangent after tangent. I only talked about two things, so I have to continue on the other two. So again, to repeat where I'm at so far, number one, very important, know your enemy, learn the history, be educated, do not be lazy anymore. Do not, do not, do not, do not, do not. You must start learning what's going on. And with that knowledge becomes sincere power because then you're able to craft words, right? Sentences that can go after their propaganda because they're not prepared for the average Joe to go after them. They are not, right? So you are now educated enough to say, no, wait a minute, that's not true. That's not what happened. This is completely wrong, right? So you're able to use words against them, right? Because it is real that you are using propaganda and you're not, you know, sincerely telling the truth. It's always one-sided. right? So use that. So number two, absolutely be prepared to use that against them. So that's important. So now number three, this is very important, and I believe that we must keep this going. So number three is we don't stop. We must not stop. Like I was alluding to earlier, that people have been so complacent about this. They have become so complacent about this to the point where it got to a cycle where atrocities happen, it becomes emotional, it becomes this, we fight, we stand, and then what happens is it subsides, and then we go back doing our own thing, right? This can no longer be a cycle anymore. So number three is we have to be consistent now. We have to be doing this until our whole lifetime if we have to, because we have to make that end goal. I am making my own end goal, my own pledge that I want to see these three holy sites. I have already seen Makkah, I have already seen Medina, I have seen the Kaaba, I have seen Masjid al-Nabawi, and now I am making a goal for myself. I really want to go see Masjid al-Aqsa in my lifetime. I want to be able to go there peacefully. I don't want to go there knowing that there will be a gun at my head if I go there, right? I have to make this message keep going on, and this consistency must keep going on because there are more causes out there. Once we succeed in this, once history has come and deemed what was going on, and when they find out that you choosing a side, and especially if you choose a side of Philistine, your side of righteousness, their side of rightness, because this is all being recorded. This is all being recorded. This is how you're going to fight a battle that if you physically can't fight. So when you choose that side, you got to be consistent on this battle. It is being recorded. So it's important. It is so important. So number three really is you have to be consistent on this. You really have to take this as a serious note, right? You have to do what is important. We cannot no longer get to the fourth point of the hadith where we just stay silent and get to the, the stage of boycotting. Because yes, boycotting is great and all, right? You're pushing companies to do the right thing because honestly speaking, if you think about it, companies themselves, they only care about money. They're short-sighted for money. That's it. That's all they care about. So whatever the opinions of what people, because to get that money, right, they have to get people to invest or spend on their product, services, or whatnot. So opinion matters. It really does. In the beginning, you know, they just look out, see what's happening, right? And they wait to see if it just becomes, a fizzled out thing, right? They are seeing, is this going to be a consistent thing or a non-consistent thing, right? So they are waiting it out, right? And it's not just companies, it's countries, it's people, everybody. Think about this. Think about this. And I want people to really understand. Why do you think like countries like Saudi Arabia is not really involved, right? Because they want to go back to business as usual, right? They're living their comfortable lives, right? They really see the Philistine cause a thorn in their lifestyle, right? They want their concerts and all of these things happening back to normal. That's normalization for them, right? When you have this anomaly for them, the Philistine cause, they don't like it. Most Western countries don't like it. They want this to be shut down, quieted, so they can go back doing their own businesses. And most of the time, it's disgusting, evil, illegal businesses, trades, and whatnot, whatever. But that's really what it is. It's not the fact that they care about human rights, but they do know when they are pressured, if they don't stand on something, right, they're going to be criticized to the point where they themselves can't handle their population, right? So that's really like damage control for them, right? But in reality, businesses, countries, you name it, they just want to go back to business. So they are watching you. They're literally watching you to see what you do. But if you keep, in number three, the consistency, keep this alive and not fizzle it out anymore, right? You're going to make a huge impact, right? And that huge impact is more than just boycotting, right? Because it is integrated here with boycotting as the fourth part of, I'm sorry, the third part of our Islamic, tradition is number one, again, like I mentioned, to repeat itself, to stop it with your hands if you cannot do so, with your voice, and then finally, if not, then with your heart. And I believe boycott really is just the voiceless action of just putting in your heart. But in some tangible accessibility, yes, boycott can be used as voice. So it's like a double thing. Because if you get to just to the boycott itself and to even lesser of a boycott, you just, you just live life and you just quietly, say I hate what's happening. You should not get to that point regardless. So let's push and pull boycott in a way that can still be used as a tool of voice. Don't make it into the third stage where it's just, we just condemn it in our heart, so we're not going to go to this thing. So you can do it that, but really you can pull boycott to you as voices, and how that is used as a tool, another weapon against this whole war is, think about it. You go to a specific restaurant, you don't just go boycott them, right? You don't just go, oh, this country has its allegiance with this country and or this thing or that thing. We're just not going to know. Pressure them, make it uncomfortable, because that's what they don't want, right? That's what they don't want. They want this to fizzle out. Pressure them. You still have your voice. This is the moment. This is the highest moment. The heated debate. This is the heated issue. Keep this alive. So you go to these companies and corporations and businesses and you confront them, right? You don't have to be that as your first stage. The first stage should be really you go and the confrontation should be just put a poster or a sticker or something on the wall of that franchise or business, right? You go and you put Free Palestine, something simple. I stand with Palestine, whatever, right? You put that on their business. Record it. Record that action. You put that on there and you see what happens, right? Because one of two things is going to happen, right? Either that company is going to take down that poster or sticker or whatever, right? Record that too. Think about the ramification, the repercussion that the company is going to have, the backlash. Because if you record it, you document it, now you're going to have a huge flurry of people, protesting or boycotting and making that company pressured to do the right thing. Again, they're not doing the right thing because of the goodness of their heart. They're doing the right thing because they're being pressured to do it, right? Because again, they only care about the money, right? A best example right now, a lot of people are looking at Elon Musk, for example, right? Elon Musk had basically said that I'm going to allow communication to go in Gaza, even though Israel condemned it. It was, the illegal occupation. They said it is real that, they said, too bad on you, Elon Musk, to do this, right? Allowing our atrocities to still be continued to be footaged or heard. How dare you, right? But now a lot of people are praising Elon Musk, right? People calling him a hero. And again, I personally don't think he's a hero. You know, he's nothing more than a businessman. But now history recorded that. Because once history is done, they're going to look back at how Elon Musk did the right thing. Right? And that's going to help, and it is helping his stocks, his business. People are now, flocking to say, congratulations, and that helps his business. And if more companies and corporations and businesses and any entity, countries and whatever, they see this, now they're going to have to follow suit too. They're going to see that, oh, we might have to do the same thing. And if you do that by putting that sticker or poster, whatever, on their windows and their doors, and they make that conscientious decision what they will do next. If they leave it, right? Good. Now promote that business. Now they're going to see, look at this free publicity. I believe it was recently where Starbucks, right, saw a huge decline of customers, right? I believe the Batistas and the people that work at Starbucks, they noticed that their franchises was not doing so well after this whole October 7th, right? Because when companies are openly saying, like for example, McDonald's was giving the IDF soldiers free food, people were just had enough of this, right? When they start seeing that their pocketbooks, their money is going down, when their shareholders, their stakeholders are saying no, they're going to make that course correction. Again, not from the bottom of their heart, but because it is a smart business decision if you want your business to thrive and keep continuing. This is why you, the person, have power, right? So again, you're not just boycotting and making that, something that you're saying it from the heart and you're not speaking it. You can actually pull it to the voice side, right? You can really use that as a powerful tool, So you push them on that. You push them on that to say, hey, what is your stand on this situation? Again, they themselves should not be neutral. Just like I cannot be neutral. You need to take a stand and see what they do. Make them uncomfortable if necessary. Right? And that is important. That is crucial. That is what is going to make real, sincere change happens. And with too many countries and businesses and doing this, real change is going to happen. That's important. And so that's number 3. Be consistent. You gotta have to do this. It's one company, businesses, and your stance on doing this. And you're gonna do this for the rest of your life. And it's not easy. It is exhausting. It is difficult. It is challenging, but it must be done. If you had enough of what's going on, you're gonna have to now make this your stance. It has to be done. I'm sorry that I'm giving you the truth. This is the reality. This is really the reality. Because if you end it, if you become comfortable with it, if you become, okay, the cause is over, this is done. No. No, it's not done. It's not done. So if you don't want to look like a hypocrite, or if you don't want to be a hypocrite, if you don't take a stand now on what is important, what as a Muslim, as a person who believes in God, how are you going to respond to God? Because I'm going to tell you this right now. I live in the West. It sickens me to live in the West that where my taxes, over $3 billion, goes to an illegal occupation, right? To do what? They have the most sophisticated technology, weaponry, designed to shoot to kill on a press of a button. And to have it fumbled on them, where a resistant force was able to shake up their whole society, of course they got too comfortable, right? With their Iron Dome defense system, right? Because really for them, right, they're, of course, when it comes to these illegal occupants, right? Majority of their citizens have to become somewhat trained soldiers. And I say somewhat because you look at what's happening now, right? They're not actual fighters, right? They're given some training, and who knows what training they really get. And that's where my tax dollar goes. But what they're more comfortable, their active duty really is sit in a control room, and it's like a video game for them. When they see rockets coming at them, press a button, and then stop all that happen while eating their McDonald's hash browns and their Starbucks coffees, right? That's what they're used to. And when it comes to actual fights, right? They know how to fight children, right? They know how to fight women. They know how to abuse and attack elderly, right? It's proven now. We see what they're capable of good at doing, right? Because when they actually had to deal with an actual resistant fighter, they cowered. They cowered. Right? They're not fighters. So I again ask, where does my $3 billion go to? Right? And it sickens me that I live in the West, that I have to pay taxes to feed this evil Frankenstein monster. And I feel, and I say this with sincerity, I'm going to be questioned. I will be questioned by God that, did you not know that you're also contributing to the Bloods? What can I say? When the Quran also says He made this land spacious for you, where you can go anywhere. but I still choose to be in the West. So yes, for me, at least for myself, I can only talk about myself. There's that level of pain I have for myself. It's really hard to justify anything I say or do because for me, I feel like a hypocrite. I really do. I'm not going to stand here and say that I don't, I'm doing whatever I can, do my part, right? As best as I can, and I'm making this, this whole thing, but in the end of it all, I still feel like a hypocrite. I really do. It really sickens me. It really does, right? So I have to make a stance. Again, I will say this now, and I probably should have said this in the beginning. And this is really unedited. I'm not going to just, record this and then just edit it to make it pretty and then, post it. No, I'm going to just, this is just all one, recording right now. I wish I'd have said this in the beginning as a disclaimer, but really, honestly speaking, I really do apologize for what is happening and that I am really talking now to myself first. I really am talking this to myself first because just as the people in Palestine and all over the world, like Uyghur, Kashmir, and all of the world, the people that are being, you know, their voices not being heard, and they have to subjugate themselves through that suffering and pain. I will say this, I do feel like a hypocrite, and I am so sorry. I really am sorry that I don't do enough for anyone else. And so, really, I am talking to myself when I say this to myself first and foremost. I have to be consistent on this. I have to take action on this. I have to start speaking on this and no longer be silent. I cannot make the excuse of being lazy and not knowing what's happening. I have to train myself, educate myself, right? So this whole thing is for me first and foremost. I sincerely have to educate myself and to know all of these things beforehand, right? I have to know these things. And on top of knowing these things, I have to act upon it. And if I can't use physical means and stop it with my hands, then I need to start using my voice and start recording and start advocating and become more active in this because I know I have to do this for the fact because I'm also accountable as well. I have to take that seriously and sincerely. So I will make this an effort of a consistency to make this my forefront, my form of activism, because I have to look back on history as well, and I have to make that choices and decisions. And if I am wrong about something, due to my lack of education and understanding the situation, I'm willing to change my stance. I'm willing to ask for forgiveness. If no one forgives me, at least I'm willing to repent for my misdeeds. And that's important because I don't want to be in any way or form on the wrong side of history, right? And I'm talking as the general, even you don't have to be a believer of religion, but I don't want to be part of the the level of the evilness of the wrong side of history. So even though I live in the West, I live in America where my taxes do go to these illegal occupations of this Frankenstein monster to kill and cause genocide, and which it really hurts me. It really does, right? And I really at this point don't have the encourage ability to leave at this point because let's just be honest, right? It really doesn't matter wherever I go or whatever I do because I mean look at Saudi Arabia, look at Pakistan, look at all these Muslim countries. Do not even get me started with Turkey. Do not get me started with Erdogan. With one face to the people and then out of nowhere giving, oil in the boat in the back. Astaghfirullah. Right? So really, does it really make a huge difference if I go to Pakistan or go to Saudi Arabia, go to Turkey, go to where? I mean, honestly, when it comes to doing the right thing in history, it really is about the person's their own agendas, right? It just builds up, right? Every person. I mean, you think Putin's gonna do the right thing because he wants to do the right thing? You know, do you think Mohammed bin Salman wants to do the right thing because he wants to do the right thing? You think anyone wants to do the right thing because they want to do the right thing? I mean, it's really their political game. It is their own image. It is their own, they have to look at all of these other factors, who they have to appease and please for, the financial, all of this. It's all disgusting calculative games, right? And it's like in the Quran, right? Allah Azza wa Jal did not make all these multinational countries and peoples and colors and races and tongues, you know, just for this all evil, manipulative me game, right? It was to so that we all get to know one another, that we learn and exchange from one another. Why do you think certain countries and nations have an advantage of resources while others do? You know, it's not just about equality, it's equity. If somebody has a better ability for natural resources of certain types and the others doesn't, let's use my natural resources and my resources that I have and your resources, and let's have a good trade, because of not just because of business and this and that, what I can gain for myself, and what it's not about my interest over your. Why can't it be everyone's interest? But that's not the case in our world today. Really, it's really not the case. So it really doesn't make a difference if my tax dollar is going to this bloodthirsty monster, or if I go to Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. These great leaders should be just wearing their bangles and just cleaning up and dusting whatever they're dusting, while having their entertainment. It makes no difference. It really makes no difference. So, but what I can do as an individual person, as a person that I'm trying to do, and is for myself first and foremost, is I have to make a stance. So that's number three. So I know I have gone so far up. It's almost an hour of this talk. So again, to now recap these first three things I have just mentioned. Number one, absolutely educate yourself. No excuses. Number two, this is a war of words. You definitely have to be able to start training yourself. Learn what the enemy uses and then use it against them, right? Because it is real, right? They want to win at all costs, and they're doing dirty things to do it, right? So you need to, step up the game, right? And I just recently saw this, and this is so sad and and terrible that they're trying to now go after influencers, people with money, power, influence, right? And they're saying, hey, if you say you stand with Israel, I'll give you $5,000, right? And not only on top of that, you see these people's, like their wallpaper of their background of their social media, just suddenly change with the with an Israeli flag. It's like what is going on, right? That's so sad. You see how scared and how they're trying to do whatever they can with propaganda, whatever they're trying to do to use those war of words to win, and it's just disgusting. So absolutely, you want to fight, learn the history, learn the information, use terminology, go against them. And number three, you got to, and you have to, you must be consistent on this, because this is a long haul. It's not one agenda and that's it. It's all sorts of agendas, one at a time, at a time, at a time. And it is exhausting. It is exhausting, and that's something you have to now actually think about sincerely and what you want to do, right? So now, last and but not least, and I put this as the last thing because this really will make and break somebody. And it is the scariest part of them all. It really is. And that is being prepared for the unimaginable. The consequences that will take place for doing the first three. And that really is, be prepared to go to jail. I'm not lying. Be prepared of losing your job. Again, I'm not lying. And maybe in some case, be prepared for death. Really. And I'm not joking. Really. Be prepared. This is a reality now. This is a sincere reality. There are really unfortunate people right now who are really uneducated. They are really just, in a dangerous place. They're being propagandized like no tomorrow. In the West alone, you've heard about, and I'm sure if you have heard about a little 6-year-old boy stabbed to death by his landlord, right? And then recently, I came to know closer to my community where there's a woman in Conroe, Texas, was on a picnic, table minding her own business, and she was stabbed, right? And again, she was not doing anything. She was just minding her own business. So really, if you're going to be speaking up with your words, and this is the reality, this is what I think most people are terrified of taking the action, because this is going to be something that's going to affect you now, really. So be prepared for that. I'm being sincere. Be prepared for it, and be prepared to lose your job. Because if you are engaging in conversations with coworkers, you may be pulled aside by your boss. Hey, you need to stop this. This is a workplace. They're going to say, separate, between state and religion and business place atmosphere must be, business, and then whatever you do outside of the work, whatever, you know. You may be the one that has to be pushing against your own company. Like I said in our option of the boycotting, right? As I said, that you might have to ask your own company and your corporation, your business that you work for, hey, what stance do you take, right? You may lose your job. Be prepared for that. Be prepared for losing your job. Be prepared to be thrown in jail, because look at so many activisms that's going on. People that are going out there to support this cause and then are willing to be going to jail for this cause. It's sad because living in the West, living in America, you do have, I believe it says, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of press, and freedom of protest. I believe it's in there. I mean, but yet, when it comes to all these freedoms that we're supposed to have, nope. I mean, look at even at platforms, right? Platforms like social media, like YouTube and so forth, right? You would think that you'll be able to freely express your thoughts and expressions, but then they come out and saying, "Oh, you have violated our guidelines and rules." Wait, what? Even when you speak the truth, when you're giving valid proof, but you know, they'll stop you because these social media platforms, they don't get held accountable to the same standards as individual human beings. They have their own. People don't know about that. So when people are actually being like their videos are being taken down or being blocked or whatever, it's like what's going on? I'm just doing freedom of speech, right? But that's the truth. That is the truth. You know, it's censorship to the countries that promote democracy. It's insane. It's really insane. And yes, you're going to face death threats. You're going to, I mean, if you haven't already, I mean, as a Muslim, it's not being a Muslim. It's not easy being a Muslim in the West. It really isn't. But if you seriously, make a stance on something, it's going to be even more dangerous. All my life, I was told keep your head low, keep your head low. Don't put a target on your back. Just do, just do what you need to do to survive. And it's not just survive, just live a comfortable life. I can't live a comfortable life anymore. I'm sick of the fact that I am in a country that gives my tax dollars to a monster. No, 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 no. So really the fourth and final thing, and it is the most painful reality of this whole thing, is be prepared for anything that can happen to you. Because let's be honest. Let's sincerely be honest. What is happening in Gaza right now? They are being literally killed, bombed, shot at, mutilated. Right? Even if they're not killed, they are suffering. Right? They don't have food, rations. They don't have gas. They don't have electricity. They don't have means of communications. And if you lose your job, yes, it is painful. Don't get me wrong. You going to jail, it is painful. Do not get me wrong. But be prepared for that. Be prepared for that. You can also resist. This is your right to resist in your own way by speaking up. We're at the level. If you can't fight, like I mentioned, then speak up. I sincerely implore anyone that really is wanting to know what to do. And I conclude this by saying, if you sincerely are trying to figure out what I can do, this is what I'm telling you to do. This is what I'm telling you to do. And this is the truth. This is the reality. Right? And if you don't do this now, and we become to the third stage, then what's going to happen is something worse than that third stage. Because if you get to the point where you just keep it in your heart and hate it from your heart, as the hadith says, it's going to end from you. It's going to end there. And let me explain this. Look at how generation is going. Look at the trend of the generation is going. Right? You get to a generation where people did fight for a cause, right? And then after those atrocities kept on going, then you have a trend of people that, reached out with their voices, right? And they kept on fighting with their voices. And then from there, then you had the generation where they don't even speak about the atrocities anymore. They kept it to themselves, right? But they themselves didn't really speak out and didn't tell their own children, because that is history now being lost. It really is. Because think about it, whoever controls the world, they control everything. And that also includes history. Right? And the people that knows the history and they keep it in their hearts and they don't share that, the new generation is going to come on. This is the scariest part. The new generation is going to come out and they're never going to know. They're never going to know the atrocities that happen. Because the former generation, they just kept it in their hearts. They knew. They might have, like I said, they might have boycotted certain places and they might tell the kids, we're not going here. But Dad, but Mom. No, I told you we're not going to go here. But why not? I'm in charge. They'll keep it to themselves. And it could be, and this is important, it could be it's too traumatic for them to talk about it. Or it could be suppression. Because we're in a surveillance world. And they know that if they talk about it, it disrupts their way of living and their children's way of living. Right? Think about it. Your smartphone devices are always listening on you. As long as it's turned on and is connected to something, it's going to listen to you. It's the reality. So even if you hold it in your heart at last generation, they're not going to know, and that's it. So it's important we don't let that happen. We don't get to that point. We don't need to get to that point. And if it does get to that point, if it really does get to that point, and the last generation that doesn't know about what happened, it really is the most heartbreaking thing in the world. It really is. So I really don't want that to happen. We should hold a stand, a line right here, where we can stop it with our voices and stop it, with our hands if we can do so. But if we can't get to that, and then let's keep it here. Draw that line. Speak up. Speak up. Stand with that issue. Stand with that issue and defend the issue. Report it. Record it. but more importantly, know about it. Don't be the ignorant. Do not be the arrogant either, right? So much misinformation, so much disgusting things that are happening. You have a brain, use it. Use the tools around you, learn the information that's necessary, be able to be smart enough. And I'm going to say this now, and really this isn't for everybody. It really isn't. I come to realize this, that not a lot of people can do this. I get it. I get it. And if that is the case for you specifically, that you don't have the means to educate yourself on these topics, and if you don't have the means to use the words to fight back, and if you don't have the means to be consistent with this, and of course, you may not even have the means to take the repercussion of what can follow afterwards. I get it. But 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 be aware and be sincerely aware. Not taking action, not having a voice, and you just keep it in your heart, and if that is what you're going to do, just keep it in your heart. At least have the courtesy, the strength. I'm talking about the strength. Whatever you can, however you can, know that, make it something that hopefully you make a supplication or a dua or pray or do something. Do something. Just even that. Because I, as a person who believes in God, as a Muslim, I do take that stance when Allah Azza wa Jal says, in the Quran, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. He is the most merciful, the most kind. Have some comfort in that as well. But just do something. I would implore and encourage something, something, at least in your lifetime. And maybe that one kindness, that one little act of goodness, whatever that small good deed may be, inshallah, God willingly. And as a person, again, belief in God will not be lost on you. And may Allah reward that, inshallah, God willingly. So again, this has been over an hour long of this talk. And believe me, I can go on and on and on. But I had to show my concern, my voice, and I have to take a stance on this. And it was important for me to do so. And I know this is going to be very scary. It is going to be scary. It's it's going to be the scariest thing I do in my own lifetime. But in the end of it all, I fear Allah Azza wa Jal, my creator, more than what this world has in store for me. Because in the end of it all, day of judgment, the day of judgment is going to trump or triumph or over exceed any of the fears that we have in this world. So again, I could be misguided by saying these things. I can be completely wrong from my own mindset, and I know this is coming from a very emotional place right now. Sometimes emotional states is not the best way to think things through. There should be better resolutions, there should be better opportunities, better channels, better ways to do these things. But at this current moment, until otherwise, there's something more than what I have for myself. This is where I'm at right now. This is where I believe until I have been challenged and proven to go on a different course, I will follow through on this course. And I'm willing to make any changes if necessary, because if it comes to the choose between the truth and the haqq and the right, I have to do whatever it's important. I really don't want to, based off of arrogance and ignorance and my own ego, because that's important. The Quran does consistently say patience and show patience. Through patience, there's victory. I agree with that. I do agree with that. And I understand that. And many people will say, you just have to be patient through this time. And part of patience, in my understanding, comes from also knowing the situation and not being, you know, not doing anything. Patience is also a virtue of also knowing your situation. For example, and this is where I'm going to leave it off, when Yaqub alayhi salam, right, he had intelligence to know the situation, right? When his other children were telling him that you won't even believe us, they're giving out their own propaganda that Yusuf alayhi salam was devoured by a wolf, right? And Yaqub alayhi salam used his intelligence, right? He assessed the situation. How can he be devoured by his wolf and then have a shirt remain? That makes no sense, and it caught his sons off guard. So he used intelligence, and with that intelligence, yes, he remained patient. you know because I believe there was a bigger picture, because using that intelligence, whatever that was given to him, he in his heart knew Yusuf al-Islam was alive, because it made no sense to him. How can a wolf devour him and leave his shirt intact? It just makes no logical sense to him. And because he used his reasoning, right, that was where patience comes in. Good play. So same with here. Use your reasoning skills. Use the intelligence that God has given you and apply it when using patience, right? Because, like I mentioned, we must speak our voices. You may feel that our voices are not going to be heard, but that's when you have to use your intelligence of then on top of patience, right? It's this process, it's the process. And hopefully that process will lead to a great reward, inshallah. Because as much as all and everyone is planning, don't forget, Allah Azza wa Jalla is also planning. And also, Allah Azza wa Jalla's plan is far better than anyone's plan. So even if we don't understand Allah Azza wa Jalla's plan, you know, be assured Allah Azza wa Jalla's plan is always better, and that as a person, especially as a Muslim, we must be patient and to see and unfold what Allah Azza wa Jalla's plan in the long run is going to be, and that's important. So I implore people to understand, because these four things I just talked about, there's going to require a lot of patience in every stage in the way, because if you're learning about the information, you have to be very patient and understand things. You're going to see and read and understand things that may be uncomfortable for you for the first time, and you may not understand. As if you're looking at it objectively through historical lenses, you need patience to really understand these things, right? And then when you implement them on using your voice, these people are trained propagandists, right? They have the art and the ability to use words, masterfully. Don't think that when you go out and challenge them right off the bat, you're going to be brought down. Even with all the education and knowledge and intelligence that you have, you're going to still be brought down, because this is something that they have been doing for years, and you're just doing it now, right? They're masterful in this game, right? So you have to show patience. You may have to learn. You may have to get back and analyze again, until the point where many voices are out there, right? Not just yours. Then they're going to be, backed into a corner. So that requires patience as well. And again, the consistency. This is hard, right? I've seen people try to do something, and because there's no consistency, they fail. And you need patience in this thing. Just like when you're in a gym to work out, you have to have a consistent routine, or else you fail, right? Same thing with this. This is not something short term. This has to be a long term, and you have to show patience, because sometimes there will be days, there will be times where you just may want to give up, or you might not see the fruits of the labor going anywhere, right? But you have to show patience through that. And then last but not least, like I mentioned in the end of it all, you may be faced with financial hardship. You may lose your job. Let's be clear. I'm not sugarcoating this. You may be thrown into jail. You may be in a situation where it could be dangerous, right? And you may lose your life. And through that, you and loved ones will have to go through patience with this as well, right? This is important. This is sincerely important, right? So, but if you really, really want to make a difference, and this again, I'm talking to myself first and foremost. This is the reality. This is the reality that we have to really take seriously, because the world stage wants this to end. They want this to be forgotten. They want to go back to business as usual, right? That really is what the end game, what everyone wants it. But you yourself, including, again, this is a reminder to myself, I prepared to do that? Am I prepared to just let that happen? Or am I prepared to be consistent and let my voice be heard, do every research I can, so I know if I have to face the consequences, I'm ready to face the consequences? Because I have either one or two decisions to make. Do I take the path of truth, the path of haqq? And with that also requires the path of patience, path of sabr, because all of this is all interconnected. And that is important, because most people cannot do that. Most people cannot do that. And I get that. I sincerely get that. And the most that they can do is make dua and supplicate and just hold it in their hearts. Just hold it in their hearts. Right? And I get that. And I do get that. But again, this is not an appeal for everyone. I understand that too. But I will say that you have to make at least a minimum, keep a stance. Make a stance. Maybe that one stance that you declare, if you declare that one stance, that's what this whole over an hour lecture is. If you make that one stance, maybe inshallah, God willingly, Allah Azza wa Jal, when you make that publicly known, just like when you make that known of, you're a Muslim, you take the Shahada, when you really, really take the stance, maybe just the stance alone, there's some reward into it. Inshallah, God willingly. So I know I have taken up so much of the time. Again, this is unfiltered. I'm not recording this and then editing. I'm just gonna post it as is. If anyone has come all the way to the end of this, I just want to end it with, some supplication and dua, and hopefully may Allah Azza wa Jal accept this dua. So again, a dua is just like a little prayer and a little supplication to God. Like, again, as a Muslim, I believe in God. God can change any course of action. So my dua really is رَبَّنَا أَعْطِينَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسْنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسْنَةً وَقِنْ عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Oh Allah, grant us goodness in this world and the goodness in the hereafter, and protect us from the doom of the hellfire. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. O Allah, grant us the ability of knowledge and shower us with mercy, for you're the great and wise. Allahumma anta salam minka salam tabarakta ya dhal jalali wal ikram. O Allah, you are peace, and from you comes from peace, for you're the great and grandeur. اللهم إني ظلمت نفسي ظلما خطيرا فلا يغفر الذنوب إلا أن تغفر لي مغفرة من عندك رحمن إنك أنت الغفور الرحيم. O Allah, I have caused many sins and wrongdoings to myself, and you're the one who can forgive these sins and wrongdoings. Please forgive the sins and wrongdoings, for you're the great and amazing. So Allah Azza wa Jal, I also like to supplicate my salam and salutations on the Prophet. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى على محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. O Allah, I send my salams and salutations on the Prophet as you have sent the salutations and the peace and the greatness on Prophet Ibrahim and the family of the Prophets Ibrahim and the family of the Prophet Muhammad and the people followed. All I send my blessings on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the family and the people of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as you have sent the blessings upon Prophet Ibrahim alaihi salam and the family and the people of Prophet Ibrahim alaihi salam, for you're the great and amazing. Again, I made a little mistake in the last supplication. Forgive me. It is a very long task after all for this whole audio. I am at this moment exhausted. But also, Allah Azza wa Jal, please, sincerely, Allah Azza wa Jal, please forgive the Muslim Ummah, forgive the people of their weaknesses and their shortcomings. Allow us to have the strength and the ability to have the protection of yourself, to allow the Muslim Ummah to rise upon tyranny and help us and guide us and protect us and make us strong in unity. Inshallah, allow us to live up to your purpose for us. Make us the khilafah, the caregivers of this earth, instead of this whole destructive mindset of just our own selfishness. Oh Allah, help us to get to know one another as you have intended for us to get to know one another and learn from one another, instead of having us to be divided and be conquered. Oh Allah, please, please, oh Allah, please put the sincerity and the knowledge and the wisdom and the ability to use our akhal, use our ability to do good and to do better instead of having to cause bloodshed and the destructiveness. For you're the one that can change our own lives. But I understand that when it comes to change, we as human beings must have to also change ourselves. So Allah Azza wa Jal, make it so that we can see the signs and that we can change, inshallah, so that we are given the greatness of the hereafter and we are in the path of pleasing you. Oh Allah, please make it in our hearts. Make it in our hearts that we have sincere understanding and fear of you, so that we are changing our behaviors and ourselves to come closer to you, Allah Azza wa Jal. Alhamdulillah. All praises and thanks to you, Allah. And I do implore your your mercy. I do implore your your kindness, and I hope you shower that mercy and kindness in our most devastating time. Ameen.